Hey there, and welcome back to Don't Open That Door. Come along with our triumvirate of terror as we descend into darkness, hurtle into horror, and plunge into peril. If you've ever spoken to a dead nun, you're in the right place. I'm Justin, and in my dreams, she never left me.
I'm Nico, and in our D&D campaign, my character's been sitting on a dream spell scroll for the past, year, and I'm just waiting for a good time to use it.
Character also fucked a bear.
I mean, yeah. It was a druid!
It was all a dream.
Oh.
I'm Dan.
And we're here today to review A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. So, this one was directed by Chuck Russell, starring Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger, Heather Langenkamp as Nancy, Lawrence Fishburne as Max, Craig Wasson as Dr. Gordon, Ken Sagoes as Kincaid, and Rodney Eastman as Joey.
He's not French. Justin's just a fuck. I just needed to establish that.
Maybe he is French.
He actually is. He was born in Marseille.
Oh,
Yeah,
dope.
okay.
Also, there's Larry Fishburne in this one.
That's Lawrence Fishburne.
Not no Lawrence, Larry.
True. We open 1 year after the second movie, which puts this movie 6 years after the first one, and we have Kristen, a local teen who is having dreams of Freddy Krueger. Due to the injuries inflicted by Freddy, Kristen's mother believes that she is suicidal and commits her to a mental hospital. While in the hospital, she meets a group of teens who are also being attacked by Freddy, including Kincaid, Taryn, and Joey. The motley crew is under the purview of Dr. Neil Gordon, and despite his best efforts, he's largely unable to help the teens. Nico, pick it up from here. What goes down?
So, all of that being said goes on until a familiar face arrives. Nancy, the protagonist of the first movie, shows up and begins working with Dr. Gordon and the teens. They're more willing to trust her because she's experienced the same things that they have. Freddy keeps attacking them, and Kristen actually pulls Nancy into her dream, allowing her to escape. Other members of the group are not so lucky, though, and Freddy manages to off a couple of them.
Dan, I'm sure things go up from here, right?
Sure. So, while all this is going on, Dr. Gordon has been having conversations with a mysterious nun named Sister Mary Helena. She leaves some clues for Dr. Gordon to follow, but he remains largely in the dark as to her true motives. Meanwhile, Dr. Gordon starts to develop some feelings for Nancy and takes her out on a date where she suggests the use of hypnosil, a drug that prevents dreaming, and also suggests hypnosis.
I've been hypnotized a couple times, and I used reverse, so I hypnotized my hypnotizer, and I turned into a medallion.
That's pretty powerful.
Yeah. Anyways, Dr. Gordon agrees to both, and together they have a group hypnosis session. They are successful, and thanks to Kristen's powers, they are all able to meet up in a shared dream world. The teens discover that in their dreams, they all have powers, and they start feeling pretty good. Freddy's crafty, though, and he lures Joey, by means of appearing like a sexy nurse, and puts him in a coma. Dr. Gordon and Nancy get blamed for this, and both of them get removed from their jobs. Nico, that don't sit right with me. Take it from there.
What also doesn't sit right with me is as soon as you said the bit about you turning into a medallion, I started picturing you as the face of Yugi's fucking Millennium Pyramid joint. It's got Justin's face on it. He just comes out with that in the middle of a climactic moment. Anyway, so Dr. Gordon has another run-in with Sister Mary Helena, and she says that Freddy's mother was locked inside of a mental asylum and was sexually assaulted by the inmates, which resulted in Freddy being born. In order to get rid of him, they have to properly lay his bones to rest. If you recall from the lore, Freddy got killed by a bunch of parents, and nobody knows where his bones are. Except for Nancy's dad. So Nancy and Dr. Gordon meet up with her father, but Nancy heads back to the hospital when the kids call begging for help. Dr. Gordon then heads out with Nancy's dad to find Freddy's bones.
Well, when I'm looking for bones, there's only one man to turn to. Dan,
I don't like
how's
that.
this end? Like bones, like money. Anyways, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah, sure. Okay, yeah. Well, Nancy and the remaining teens re-enter the dream world, but Freddy kills some of them, leaving Joey, Kincaid, Nancy, and Kristen. Meanwhile, in the real world, Dr. Gordon and Nancy's dad have found Freddy's bones, but Freddy takes control of his bones, kills Nancy's dad, and mashes up Neil. No bueno. Back in the dream world, Freddy stabs Nancy, but then Nancy plays an Uno reverse card and stabs Freddy with his own razor glove, but she dies soon after. Neil uses some holy water and purifies Freddy's bones, and he is seemingly defeated. The movie ends with Dr. Gordon attending Nancy's funeral and going to sleep next to a papier-mâché model of Nancy's house from the first movie, when it mysteriously begins to light up. The end.
Aw, shit.
All right. Well, I hope y'all weren't daydreaming through the synopsis because we've got a lot to talk about.
Oh.
So first, let's go ahead and talk about how this movie looks. Dan, how's this film look?
I think it looks kind of cool. I thought there were some cool effects in it. The marionette kind of scene where, who was that? Was that Joey? I think, or no, the wheelchair kid was, where he's being like let out by pulling strings of like a puppet. That was pretty cool. And there was just some cool Freddy effects and things throughout the film. So I actually kind of liked how it looked. The one thing I didn't really like, and probably looked good when it came out, but retrospectively not so much, is Freddy's bones being animated. Didn't really hold up to today's standards.
Fair enough. Nico, how's this film look?
I will agree with Dan's comment on the reanimated bones. It was very Goosebumps-y and just quite silly, but I'm a big fan of how this looks otherwise. I really like the creative ways that Freddy appears. I really like in particular this one scene where he's kind of like a worm coming out of one of the walls in the room that they're in. I just thought that was rad as hell. And I like the setting. I don't know, I think it's a good looking film for the time.
I agree with everything you both have said. The only very, very, very minor thing that I have to add is when Nancy shows up. So this movie came out chronologically, just like roughly 2 years after the first one. And Nancy's actress is only like 23 or so in this movie. So they gave her this gray streak or streaks, I guess, in her hair to try and, I guess it's supposed to maybe represent she's traumatic, so she went gray early or something. And it looks semi-ridiculous, IMO.
I think it looks cool.
I think she looks like a fucking movie star. And
I mean,
then
she's
got these random gray streaks. So I don't know. I think that looks a little ridiculous. But aside from that, I really like how the movie looked. In terms of sound, Dan, where are we at with that?
I thought the sound was good. I guess I'm going to comment more on dialogue. We get some good Freddy one-liners here.
Yeah.
I think, is this the beginning of like real Freddy one-liners?
Yes, it is.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And I actually enjoyed them. They're not too over the top and ridiculous yet. I kind of like the dialogue, actually.
Personally, in terms of dialogue, I like Kincaid, bro. Kincaid always has something to say to someone.
Yeah.
So dialogue-wise, I found him to be the best. In terms of the general score, it is exactly what you would think of in a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. Like straight up is exactly what you would think of. And they even have another version of the classic Freddy. 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you.
Oh.
So, I mean, whenever we're making a hard, scary hip-hop beat to that one, let me know.
Mm-hmm.
I'll hop on the remix. But that's what I thought. Nico, where you at with it?
Yeah, it is pretty much just how you said it. It's exactly what you would expect from a Nightmare soundtrack. Kind of silly sounding, a little childish at times, but still with the traditional sort of 80s horror musical stabs that you would expect at the time. And it fits perfectly, so I've got no complaints. And I also am a fan of the dialogue, so that helps for sure.
Absolutely. I have another talking point here for us to dive into, like a porpoise through a flaming hoop to get some bluefin tuna as it jumps away from a mako shark. So,
I didn't take that class in college like you did.
well, not all of us can be gifted with underwater philosophy. Either way, how does this movie compare to the first two?
What porpoise do you have in asking us that?
Oh, I see what you did there.
Whoa!
I guess I'm going to mostly compare it to number 1 because number 2 is some dog shit.
Booty.
Well, actually, to compare it to number 2, it does not have very many
Similarities.
Homoerotic symbolism
Oh,
here.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, that was weird. Did
But-
not like that part of that.
To be fair, dear listener, we're not saying that it was bad because of
Correct.
having, you know, like
Correct.
latent, like
Right.
homoerotic vibes. It's more
It
so
was
who the vibes
bad.
were
Super
with.
problematic.
Yes.
But I think this movie had a lot more like hope in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think because you kind of get the teens band together and in our dreams we're better than we are in real life, and we can fix our problems and overcome and beat Eddie. Eddie?
Eddie? Who the fuck is
What
Eddie?
the fuck did I say Eddie for?
Van Halen. Beat Eddie Van Halen.
Yep. Can beat Freddy, and I don't know, a lot more hope, which I thought was interesting. I didn't love that, but I didn't hate it either. I think if they went a little bit more hokey with it, I would have hated it, but it kind of towed that line for me. But yeah, I'd say that's like one of the major differences.
Nico, where are you at with it?
Yeah, now that you mention it, Dan, it is one of the harder pivots tonally that I think we've seen between sequels. Just comparing those two, just, man, wildly different. But I was a fan of the more sort of like lighthearted, almost, I don't want to say optimistic, but there's definitely more of an aspirational sort of vibe to how the characters interact with each other instead of just being miserable all the time. Like, there is some genuine, like, I hate to just keep saying hope, but, Star Wars Episode 4 up in this bitch.
Yeah, agreed. Now, I will say this. Nico, you said you liked the hope and hokiness. Dan said it towed the line for him. For me, it was too much, and I did not like it. I thought the kids getting powers was dumb. Dumb. Especially when, like, Taryn, I'm a badass in my dreams, and she's just got, like, a mohawk
Yeah.
and two of the smallest knives one could hope to have. Like, it's like
That's
her
a fair
attack range-
point, Justin. I will give you that. You'd think she'd get bigger knives.
Her attack
For the
range
guy
went
whose
down.
whole thing is hands with knives. You think you wouldn't come here with a fucking pea shooter of a knife. And she does.
Yeah, and like Kincaid's thing is like he's strong now, so he just gets a muscle shirt. And like he displays his strength like twice. But my favorite one is the fucking Wizard Master, bro, the kid in the wheelchair. Like, at first I thought his superpower was going to be that he could walk because he like stands up and walks. And then I was like, nah, man, don't do him like that. And he's like, nah, in my dreams, I'm the Wizard Master. And I'm like, bet, you're the Wizard Master. So he's fucking Freddy up with these like long range wizard blasts. And then he's like, time to do what any good spellcaster would do. And then he like runs up for like melee combat with Freddy and gets murked. And I'm like, bro,
He kind of like walks
You-
directly into the knives.
you
Yeah.
were the one guy. You were the one guy who could have beat Freddy 1v1. He can't get close to you. And you still lost. So I thought that was dumb. But also, on a more serious note, I think one thread of continuity throughout the three films is adults are shit.
Yeah.
Because in the first movie, they're shitty. In the second movie, oh boy, they're real shitty. And in this one in particular, there's an orderly who he makes some advances towards Taryn, and he's like a drug dealer. So he's trying to get her on some drugs, but he's like, but also aside from drugs, I'm into underage girls. Hee. And I'm just like, sure, man. Why do we have to have this? Why do we have to have this? And I don't know. I guess it is kind of a trademark of the series at this point. Can't really
Or
say
at
shit
least
about it.
maybe the 80s. I don't know. Like how prevalent it is in
Maybe that
80s
too.
films, but I feel like it was much more accepted back then.
When did Carrie come out? The first Carrie movie. It was late 70s, early 80s, right?
Late 70s, I think.
Yeah, 76.
Yeah.
Late 70s.
Mid. And yeah, who could forget that opening scene where I'm just like, whose fantasy are we watching?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's turn to something more lighthearted. Nancy's dead. How do you feel about it?
Fuck, man.
Uh,
What a transition.
I don't know. I feel fine because I didn't really consider her that much of a character. Well, no. Let me rephrase that. She's clearly a character, but I mean, she was in the first movie and the third movie, so it's not to me like, oh, she's not like fucking Frodo over here or something like, oh, she fucking tossed the ring into Mordor. Oh wait, what do you mean Frodo died? I mean, I know he didn't, but like, it's not of that caliber. If a major character died, like, I don't know, she was in this movie and then she died. Fine.
Yeah, and quick side note, if there were ever two characters that were, air quotes, just friends, it's Frodo and Sam. So, moving past that...
Sam's the realest one in the series, though.
Mr. Frodo, let me carry your load.
Mr. Frodo. Wow. Wow. You went
Is that
there.
not what he says? If only for a little while. Wow. Oh, no, here we are with this shit again. I was kind of salty at Nancy dying, largely because when I was younger, I had a bit of a crush on her. And
Sure.
now I just don't like to see her die. But I will admit, her story's kind of been told at this point.
Yeah.
And I don't really think she's going to be really relevant in a future film. Now, if they want to pull
Because
a Scream...
she's dead.
You got me there, Nico. You got me there. So why don't you tell me, how do you feel about Nancy being dead?
So, but before all that, I just got a question per her design. Do you just not like Rogue from the X-Men?
I'm down with Rogue from the X-Men.
Why? What's the difference?
Well, there's a real reason why her hair got gray.
As opposed, I mean, they're different reasons, but why is hers more valid?
I'm sorry, you got something for the silver foxes out here, Nico? Is there something you want to tell me about?
Yes, I do.
I'm just saying I thought it looked ridiculous when she looked very youthful in every other respect. I thought that could have been done slightly better.
Hey, man, don't be mad because she has multicolored hair and you have zero.
Hey, listen, I'll have you know zero is infinity.
No, it's not.
It represents infinite possibilities.
No, I think it represents zero possibilities.
Y'all are like the second and third. My mom was cutting me up over this shit earlier.
Good. She was right.
She was talking about my sister's guy, and she was like, yeah, Briss has such a nice full head of hair, and you have nothing. You can't criticize his hairstyle. I was like, hey, yo, that's a bit much. And she was like, nah, man. And she went on for like a solid 10 more minutes cutting me up.
Justin,
Yeah.
I don't know if you're aware, but bris is the name of the Jewish ceremony of circumcision. You couldn't just say Chris.
So this is going to be the episode with no transitions. We just going in. So there's a nun.
Y'all are out of control.
So there's a nun. Nico, I no longer care why you think Nancy's dead or not. There's a nun in this movie.
That's fair, and I understand.
And she's a ghost nun on top of that. And she ends up coming back to help his name is not Dr. Gafford, it's Dr. Gordon. So she comes back to help Dr. Gordon and tells him how to defeat
Ramsey.
Freddy and such, and also just helps everything. How'd you feel about the nun, especially with the reveal that the nun was secretly Freddy's mom?
I think it was like plainly obvious that it was his mom, because like otherwise how would she know all this shit? So like I took it pretty much at face value, like of course it's gonna be her who's coming back. Like if not her, then who?
Fair, Dan?
Yeah, I thought it was a little weird. It felt kind of out of place to me. For some reason, the the vibe, if you will, of those scenes and her being there, the nun being there, just didn't seem to match the rest of the movie, I feel like. So I just thought it was kind of weird, and it was almost like, what's the saying, Deus Ex Machina, just sort of like, I don't even know if I'm using that properly, but just like, oh, here's someone to tell you how to beat the bad guy.
Yeah, I mean, that is absolutely true. I agree with you. I think that the nun could have been better integrated into the story, or they could have just done away with the nun and had a different kind of info dump. Because also, like, how irrelevant does it seem that the nun's like, you defeat Freddy by doing this? Okay, they do it. Freddy's still good.
Yeah.
I mean, what was the point of all that? So we'll see. And speaking of pointless things, I want to talk to you guys about the powers that these teens have.
Oh, okay. Here we
Okay.
go.
A solid chunk of time is dedicated to being like, oh, you know, like they do the group hypnosis, and Kristen has these powers where she can pull people into her dreams, which seems like a massive liability when it comes to Freddy. Like, bitch, I don't want to die.
Real talk.
So-
yeah.
So don't pull me into your fucking dreams. And I don't know. They get their powers and then they're immediately killed off. Immediately. Like in the scene where they get powers, one of them is put into a coma. And then not too long after that, they all start getting murked. No one is able to accurately fight Freddy except for the Wizard Master. And Joey screams one time. So I don't really know personally. And you know what they forgot that really got me fucked up? Do you remember in the first movie, Nancy pulled Freddy out of a dream because she woke up with like holding Freddy, and that's how
Yeah.
she beat him.
Yeah.
She pulled him out of the dream. Why didn't they do that again?
Wanted to be different. from
Yeah,
the
but it
first
was
one.
stupid.
I don't think it was stupid. I think that the kids having powers and them being moments where it's like, oh, yeah, we have this sort of creative idea of how to confront him. I think that is the point. Not that it's effective because, like, of course they're not. It's Freddy's home turf. Like, it's just something to see them be a little bit more. I don't know, just something different for the sake of the novelty aspect of it. And it's another way to be creative as opposed to just like, I'm gonna, I don't know, shoot him with my gun or something. Like, I thought the point of it was to really just sort of lay into that side of it as opposed to genuinely trying to be like, these people are genuinely going to actually win.
Concisely put. I hate it. Dan, what'd you think about the powers generally?
I mean, I think I'm somewhere in between the two of you. I liked that they had powers and the whole like, oh, I thought it was a cool idea to go, hey, we're in dreams, so
Yeah.
we can do things in dreams that you can't do in real life, you know? But, and to the point of somebody dying right after they got their power, I think that's fine. I mean, it's like, hey, we're hopeful here. Nope, psych, just kidding. Like Nico
Right.
said, you're in my home turf, like, fuck off, get out of here. Kind of like, you know, I mean, I kind of, this is going to be a wild comparison, but I think about like Attack on Titan, right?
What?
Like, season 1, like anytime anything good happens, immediately like, oh, we graduated, haha, just kidding. Or like immediately like hope just gets killed. And I feel like that's
Yeah.
kind of what happened in this too.
I agree.
The wildest power, and it's not even a power, but I was just dead near the end when fucking Kristen does a fucking front flip and kicks him in
Oh,
the chest.
yeah. I forgot. Her
shit
thing
was
is
funny.
gymnastics. It's fucking gymnastics.
Yeah.
Like, that's not even a superpower. If you just trained, you could do that in real life.
That was a good one.
And you know what the best part is? I bet you that was, I don't know if it was her, like the actual like person playing the role or a stunt double, but that was just a regular ass person doing some front flips and shit.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
man. But she already had a power anyway, so I don't feel too bad for her.
Yeah.
Now, I gotta ask, this film has a lot of memorable scenes and kills. Did you have a favorite scene or a favorite kill?
I don't know about a favorite kill, but my favorite moment was, I can't remember if he was talking to Nancy or one of the other kids during this point, but there's a moment where I'm pretty sure it's Nancy is looking at the kid in the coma, and she's like, Freddy, stop this. And then Freddy writes on the kid's chest, like, come and get her, bitch, basically, in like lacerations. I just thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that would definitely fall under a scene, and that's a cool one. I wonder how they would explain that to the hospital. I wonder how the hospital...
That I thought was hilarious, because that happens in the next scene. It just like hard cuts to Nancy and Gordon just like driving in the car. And I was like, well, they glossed over that real quick.
Dan, you got a favorite moment, scene, kill, anything?
I do, and I mentioned it before. I just really like the marionette kind of scene when that one kid in the wheelchair, he like Freddy like rips his...
No, it wasn't a kid in the wheelchair. It was a sleepwalking kid.
Oh, sleepwalking kid. That's what it was. Thank you. Freddy like rips his tendons out or something, and like
that shit was
pulls
brutal.
him like a puppet. That was really, really cool. And he's just like walking around like a puppet, and he eventually jumps out of a window because Freddy makes him do it. But it looked really cool, and I thought it was really creative.
I agree. That was a very cool scene. My favorite scene was when Kincaid came out and they were in the dream, and he was like, Freddy, where you at, you pussy?
Yeah, man.
I'm playing. Not really, but that scene made me die laughing. My true favorite scene was the one where, and I don't know her name, but she was sitting down and she was like smoking and burning herself with the cigarette to stay awake. And the TV kind of morphs into Freddy, and then he like grabs her. And that's a scene where CG would not have looked anywhere near as good. But they had all the like practical effects and everything. And then he's like, welcome to prime time, bitch. And fucking just like grabs her and shoves her head first into the TV. Which, how the fuck would you explain that? Because Lawrence Fishburne's character walks in and he's like, shit. And what would you say? Like, what would you say?
She was playing Super Mario Brothers and had the bright idea to try hitting the block for herself.
Yeah, I have no fucking clue, bro, how a person could even do that. That should have been the first sign something's going on. I don't know. But what I do know is, I think it's time to take it to the What Would You Do? And we're going to do a classic here on DOTD. You're not going to choose your own. The other two will choose for you.
Okay.
So, Nico, do you want me or Dan?
I don't
You'll be choosing for one of us. Just pick one.
Dan.
Dan, in that case, you've got me and I've got Nico.
All right.
So, in the dream world, the teens manifest a special power based on their personality or history. Nico, what would be Dan's special power?
I feel like since he just mentioned Attack on Titan, he would become one of the Titans from Attack on Titan.
Oh, no.
Dan would become the new founding Titan. So have fun with that one, bud.
Great. Thanks.
Dan, what kind of power could you see me manifesting?
I feel like you would be like a voodoo powers or something.
Oh, hell no. I don't hey, I don't walk no kind of obia, you know. So
but I feel like you would though. You'd be like the
hey yo.
You'd be walking around with like a doll of Freddy, casting spells and like poking them up, you know.
Wow. All right. Well, last but not least is Nico, and I guess I'm going to go ahead and say this. I personally think that Nico's power would be Freddy would show up in his dream, be like, I'm going to kill you, you gangly bitch. And then Nico would be like, well, actually, let's talk about that real quick. You ever platinum Bloodborne before? And then you would just have the power, I feel like, to manipulate your dream so it looks like Bloodborne. And then Freddy's going to have to beat Bloodborne before he gets to you.
Dude. I love that. Let's fucking go, bitch boy.
And that would be that. And like, you'd be over there fighting the one hunter that comes for you at the end, and Freddy's still like fighting the beast cleric. He's like, how am I supposed to do this? And it's like, nah, Freddy, you got to get good, bro.
Can't beat the Orphan of Cos when you're wearing that knife glove, you dumbass bitch.
So yeah, and not the beast cleric. He's from the other shit. But anyhow.
It's cleric beast.
True. But I want to take it now to the critical review. Where do you guys think this ranks on Rotten Tomatoes?
I hope that it's fairly decent, but I'm going to guess that it's fairly low. I am going to throw out like a 42.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
Dan?
I'm going to say that it's a 68.
Wow! For once, Dan actually pulled a Nico. It is exactly 67% on Rotten Tomatoes,
Exactly
Bro.
not what I said.
but the audience does have it at a 68.
Okay.
Fair play
So-
to him.
So well done, Dan. You wear the crown for this week.
Yes.
So why don't you go ahead and give me your rating of the movie and just maybe one or two thoughts. And I'll lead. I don't fucking like this movie. I think it has some really cool moments, and you cannot fault the practical effects and you cannot fault the creativity that went into a lot of this shit. I guess this is just an issue I have with the plot. I do not like the plot of this movie. I think it is bad. Now, the second movie, also, I did not like the plot of that movie. But this one, I also don't like the plot. I cannot wait.
I used
until
to
we-
do drugs. I still do, but I used to too. Rest in peace, Mitch.
And I personally cannot wait until we get to some of the later films where personally I think I'll enjoy them a little bit more. For what it's worth, if this is your thing, I know. And you know what? I feel like there's a little Stranger Things element in this slightly, maybe just a little bit. And maybe it'll appeal to the youth. For me, this is going to get a 62.
That's higher than I thought you were going to go. I enjoyed it enough. I didn't love it, but I thought it was fine. Some creativity in it, again, with the kills and effects and everything. I do agree with some of your points on the plot just being not quite the best. I'm going to say 70.
So I like this movie a lot. This is actually the first Nightmare movie that I saw, and it was my favorite for the longest time because of that. But now having seen the first three, I will say that the first one's just so goddamn good, and then the second one sure as fuck isn't. But this kind of is my thing. I had a lot of fun with it, and I'm gonna give it a 76.
Well, there you go. Is this going to get a recommendation from the podcast?
I would recommend it.
Yeah, I think I would. Yeah.
You're gonna recommend it. Shut up.
Grudgingly, yes.
There we go.
Now, definitely no golden seal. I'm going to shut that shit
No.
down right now.
No, certainly not.
So there you have it, dear listener. Those have been our thoughts, laid out for you to see. Join us in the symphony of expressing yourself on social media. That's right. We are on X and Instagram at DOTD Horror. We're also on Facebook. Let's don't open that door. Plus, you can check everything we've done on our website, which is dotdhorror.com. But till next time, have sweet dreams, not dreams with some psychopath chasing you. Look out for one another. But as always, dear listener, don't open that door.